Good evening, dobrý večer. My name's Linda Jaňorová, and I'm the president of Sokol San Francisco. On behalf of Sokol San Francisco, I'd like to thank you all for making the time to be here tonight and for helping us welcome our very special guest, Renata Bricka. I'll be turning over the microphone to Renata shortly. As we all know, no virtual gathering would be complete without going over some ground rules. Jana already touched upon a couple of them. We will be recording, or we are recording, tonight's presentation. To enhance the presentation experience, we ask that you please stay muted throughout the duration of the presentation. If you have any questions that come up while Renata's speaking, feel free to chat them to us. We will have a dedicated Q&A period at the very end of Renata's presentation, but we won't be having her answer any questions during her presentation. Finally, please let us know if you're experiencing any audio or visual issues as they arise so that we can try to tackle them right away. Now, without further ado, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on our incredible speaker. Renata was born in Slovakia.
Thank you.
It's true. I never cease to be amazed. Every time I review your resume, I find something new. So she was born in Slovakia. She moved to the US in 1982. She holds an MA both in fine arts and art history, as well as Russian language and literature. Her career has been diverse, it's been rich and very interesting. She's worked as a translator at Oregon State University. She's designed opera costumes. She taught Russian in a community college during the Cold War, translated scientific articles. She's a trained classical singer who still performs and has 4 children. I'll let her take it over from here to tell you the rest about possibly her and everything there is to know about wooden churches in Slovakia. Renato?
Dobrý večer. Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm going to speak in English. I will try to right now open the presentation, so please hold on for a moment. And right, I will go back to you guys. It's a little bit more complex than usual. All right. Just a second.
Okay,
Slide.
Renata, yep, that looks great. Keep going. We don't have you in presentation mode just yet.
Right. The bars were covering it.
Perfect. Now we can see the first screen.
Right. Now I just need to make sure that I can advance. I can. Fantastic. Thank you. So everyone is ready. Today I'm going to speak on unique wooden of Slovakia. There are 60 churches left. So only some of them are UNESCO World Heritage. Some, as you know, many different towns and buildings and villages and churches in the near future are going to be also on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Today we are going to talk about Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and Protestant churches in Slovakia. This is the content. So I'm going to talk about crossroads of the cultures, where Slovakia is. Introducing the UNESCO churches of Slovakia. I'm going to talk about 7 of them. On the margin are just, if we manage to talk about Byzantine Empire and its influence, obviously, all these churches, the Christianity came from the East to us. Moravian Empire and the Greek Byzantine scholars, Constantine and Method. So I would like to talk about them if we manage. This is a short time here. Slovakia's location in Central Europe is at the crossroads of different cultures, Eastern and Western influences, traditions. According to the records, Slovakia had 100 wooden churches before, in which the Western Roman culture overlapped the Eastern Orthodox, Eastern Byzantine culture. As I said, only 60 remain. in 19th century, throughout the history of Slovakia, of course, they are wooden, so they burnt easily. But people were very heroic to save them. I will talk a little bit about that. Many settlements in the huge Western Carpathian Mountains are obvious on this map, and they allowed all these wooden structures to be built because there's plenty of wood. So people were not building from stones, they were building from wood. Their dwellings where they lived and the sacral buildings. This is map of Europe, as you see, through the territory of what is today Slovakia. Poland, Ukraine, Hungary ran an imaginary border of two cultures, Occidental, Eastern, and Western, and Oriental, Eastern. These are also the regions that militarily protected other Europe, and thus helped to develop what it is right now. I've been reading several articles. There are so many different opinions on that. All right, this is a little close-up. We are going to talk about 8 rarest wooden churches plus 1 belfry. And they use folk traditions in architecture, polychrome technique, and Gothizing character buildings, which means they are sort of built on a sort of the visual effect of a Gothic style in Western Europe, in other Europe, but they are still unique folk buildings, unique in their combination of the elements of both Latin and Byzantine styles. First one is Hervartov, Saint Francis of Assisi, 1499-1500. This is the oldest and best preserved in Slovakia. I would like to say that in 70s, my girlfriend, who was extremely interested in the history of Slovakia and folk traditions, she told me that this is right now something fascinating is happening in Hervatov. They actually uncovered the walls. They were overpainted throughout the centuries with some other paint and decorations and ornamentations, and even, well, sort of like modern 19th century or century paintings. But actually, this is right now such a fascinating church that I invite you to go and see it. It has small walled-in property. It's built inside of it. Exterior of the church is almost unchanged. It would remind you of a little bit of maybe German Gothic. Building is in the Gothic style from spruce and yew. That's tisové drevo. It has rectangular nave. It has 4 parts: rectangular nave, polygonal presbytery, very interesting, small vestry where the priest and attendants are changing, and babinets. Babinets is under the tower where women meet to worship. So a long time ago, women were also having different place from men worshippers. Usually women are allowed to nurse there, and there are older women and there are children there and so on. So it was place where people could be a little bit more noisy. It's unusually high. It has high ridge roof, covered with shingles. There is between on the very top, well, as you see on the left side, there's some small tower. It's called sakustnik. It's sankustnik. It sort of comes from sanctuary, some ornamentation. Anyway, walls are protected by upright wooden facing, and each of these churches is built slightly differently. I said that it has protective walls with a shingle roof. This is my husband. We were visiting it. The village, they kept certain buildings very original. Hervarto village was found in the first part of the 14th century by German colonists from Silesia. It was subject to free royal town of Bardejov, northeastern Slovakia, Bardejov, very beautiful town. Hervato was farming, sheep herding, and cattle raising, logging, and wood processing. Also, glassworking. Just if you don't know, there were a lot of Italians who moved to Slovakia during Renaissance, and they were glass workers, and they taught us how to make beautiful glass chandeliers, glasses, everything like that, the dishes. So just so you know that even in that village, they were working with glass. On the left is granary. It's very traditional style. The church itself, as you see, it's incredible artistry and mastery, building, joining, fitting of the elements of the roof, while all is built with no nails and no other material. Besides the stone low base, as you see, the base is there. It's built with horizontal logs, the lower part, and vertical planks, the upper part, and it's secured with laths. Lath is those small sticks between, so they cover the planks holes wherever they are. Inside of the church is very mystique. It's beautiful when you walk in, especially after they uncovered these more old paintings. Those are not the oldest ones, but they are actually some, especially in the sanctuary, are the oldest. And a lot of this church interior furnishing was taken to Budapest later on, when we split with Austro-Hungary split. But we still retain a lot of beauty there, especially Gothic wall paintings and tableau paintings are still there. During the Reformation, I will advance a little bit. There are some, this church was originally Catholic. Then it changed during the Reformation period into the Protestant church. And so some paintings were added with the feel of German Protestantism, Reformation, and then it was Catholicized again. So then it has some Baroque paintings or decoration that look different. This is, for example, in the spirit of German Protestantism. If you look at paintings or church paintings in France or Italy from that period, it looks completely different. So you know that this is very much of a church influence, German influence. This is Babinets inside. Under the tower, there are stations of the cross. This is where women were. So we will look into the sanctuary. Usually there is very common feature of all the churches in Slovakia, including the formal churches, formal Gothic churches, is the Calvary. Calvary is built on one strong beam that divides sanctuary from the nave, and it has beautiful strong cross, Virgin Mary and St. John. And here, this is a great example of that. When you look at from the entrance into the nave, it's just so beautiful, so folkish and inviting and warm. I just loved it. Those are my photos when I was there. Here it's just beautiful pictures that I want to show that I was there. I really, 2-3 years ago, I went through many, many churches. Even this summer, past summer, I went to one. So there are 4 points on the cross. 4 evangelists. It means 4 evangelists in a Catholic church, as this one is. When it's in a Byzantine church or Greek Orthodox church, we have only 3 points, and it means there are letters, Greek letters, instead of pictures or icons of apostles, and it means I am, like I am who I am, the first conversation of Moses with God. All right. Now we see one of the polychromed painting on the wall, and it's most beautiful. It's very much of the area of the people, folk painters that were invited to paint to decorate the church. The parable of 10 virgins is painted on the wall, or Jesus talks about them joining the wedding and they forgot the oil and so on. What is really cute about it is that they are actually posing in their local aristocratic dresses, robes. So it's not a French or English or Spanish or Italian fashion. It's a fashion of that Upper Hungary at that time. And the very famous, very favorite St. George slaying a dragon. It's such a favorite saint of that period. And well, it has roots in already in Greek and Roman mythology. And so I don't want to get into the changes of these different stories. It is that the multilingual notes or writings everywhere. This is Czech language and German language and Latin language, because this was a very industrial area. People from and commercial area, people from all over were moving to these towns. As we look into the one corner of it, as I said, a lot of furnishing was taken into Budapest Museum. They had the upper hand in decisions. Of course, people would not like to let it go. Tabernacle is sort of like Rococo style already, much later, much later designed and made by people. Just closer look how beautiful these wall paintings are. So we have a view of these two putties in Tabernacle. It's probably like naive art of local people. And most beautiful Jesus, Ecce Homo, which he kind of ponders what a human race is. And that reminds me of the thinker of Rodin. I mean, there are many people who like to use that sort of depiction of Christ. And these are, for example, processions, liturgical holidays, processions, soldier statuary of the Christ and Christ for Good Friday, Holy Week, Christ that is resurrected, and then on the right is Bishop Nicholas. So from Hervartov Church to Budapest National Gallery, side altar from the 15th century, the wings from the original main altar, the Renaissance portable altar 1514, the Renaissance tabernacle, they are all in Budapest National Gallery. And one side altar from 1524 is in the museum Bardejov. Bardejov is a fantastic museum in that neighboring medieval town, worth seeing. They have a lot of icons there too. So this is such a beautiful Gothic. I cannot believe that they took it. Anyway, it has a little feel of German Gothic. This is Last Supper. Last Supper is very important painting of all the churches. 1653 painted, this one. We can say it's sort of really, it's, Baroque period in Europe, but sort of in a late Renaissance style. Sometimes you see this is 11 apostles because you are the 12th. In the Greek Orthodox churches, sometimes you have 13 apostles and one of them represents you. So this is a lot of symbolism, and Christ is inviting you to dine with him and to live with him. The planks were used, obviously, donation of the wood from local forests of people. This is all people's money. They donated and they painted and they were very giving and generous, of course, self-built by donations. Vertical planks, lath that cover those vertical planks, and they are all stenciled, and it looks so pretty. The next church is Tvrdošín, mid-15th century UNESCO. It was a little bit revived in 19th century, and those columns in the front, those originally was all wood, and then those stone columns happened a little later on. Why all of them are UNESCO heritage? Because all of them are very unique. there are many other churches, but these are very unique churches. It was very rare combination made of larch, which is smrek, and the roof that is using trees that grew around. So this is all made of very, very local trees. The structure has a simple oblong plan. So it's very simple. What is very nice is there is a wooden walkway all around the church to also protect the walls of the church, but also allow people, worshippers, to gather, to walk around, not to get cold or not to get wet. And today, it's not regularly, there are no worships happenings or no masses or so on, but it's used for different, for weddings, baptisms, and other occasions that people like to hire the church for. Awarded by Europa Nostra organization in 1994. What happened with this church is that it was sort of falling apart, and local people organized a group that donated not just a lot of money, but a lot of labor and specialized labor, and they repaired marvelously. The church is restored to the point where they were using original ways to restore it, original materials, original tempera, paint, and beeswax, and whatever was needed to restore this particular church. This is why it is so valuable. It's in Orava region, northern Slovakia, close to Polish border. Look how beautiful it is from outside. It's super elegant to me. So surviving the climate conditions. Obviously, it's very, very harsh condition in northern Orava, if you know what it is. High mountains and all. Large cemetery is all around the church, which is usually tradition, and is enclosed with a brick little, I would say, wall. It was originally a fortification, and it was actuated by actually several small arrow slits. So it was a fortress, little fortress. Now you see the kind of main entrance to that little fortress. And there's a pretty turret. See how steep the roofs are to not to retain any snow, not to allow snow to pile up. And it's actually very elegant. There are pretty and added later on. Turrets were added a little later on. There are also two masonry charnel houses, buildings, which are sort of, we can call them also morgues or tombs or vaults. And they actually have corpses when there were certain plagues going on. And they also have many bones that when they are dug out, when new graves are dug and they run into the bones, they put them into those masonry charnel houses. So Tvrdoshin looks like this from some other viewpoint view. Beautiful. So it was erected most likely in 1460. Numerous rights were given by the Hungarian King Ludovic I, but the village was still a vassal territory of Orava Castle. Orava Castle is most beautiful and daring castle, and they had to have vassal territories. Many villages belonged to them. Of course, they had to be strong and survive all these attacks of all kinds of enemies. This is the support roof system. I took a picture of that. Beautiful walkway around, and the zrub, the tightly fitted logs of the Tvrdoshin, beautifully shingle covered by shingles roofs, Gothized windows, looks like Gothic window to me. For example, beautiful leaf-shaped doorknob. Side is very pretty. It has captivating figural and ornamental planks. Ceiling that is sort of like coffered ceiling in Renaissance, but it's a very Byzantine looking and very folkish looking at the same time. So those are square shapes, and they are symbolizing heavenly stars. This is genuine folk art Painted also with late Renaissance. It was decorated in 1654. It's a valuable painted Gothic panel is in Budapest. So not everything, not all the furnishing is original again. When you look inside, it's most beautiful, tasteful. On the left side, there is a pulpit, and it's a late Renaissance. It looks to me very, very Italian. It's very beautiful and tasteful, all made of wood. Pulpits all around painted on the roof are the saints and apostles, and they sort of also remind you of some icons in Byzantine art. And do you hear me? All right. Like icons and Byzantine decor. No stone was used inside. All right. I change into I will show you some interiors here, as I mentioned. Beautiful polychromed wood, very, very folkish. Here we have beautiful, elegant altar, also wooden altar. And St. George, here's one tableau slaying a dragon again. The dominant bark altar from the 17th century. The Gothic main wing altar was taken to Budapest in 1919, so after the First World War. What I would like to say also that the church is called All Saints, and I think it's very, very practical in a way because the altar main painting is painted in a way that nobody has to change anything throughout the year because there are all the holidays are in that one painting, so it's practical. Tempera on wooden panels. This is how it is painted, the entire interior of the church. So it's egg tempera, permanent, fast drying, medium, then consists of colored pigments, right? They are found in nature and some are bought. Colored pigments mixed with materials such as egg yolk. And this is, I mean, the many very, very ancient things in the world were painted that way. Okay, now we see it from, and here's All Saints, lit, cemetery is lit. So what does it mean, articular? These were Catholic churches that I just showed you. Now we're going to talk about Protestant churches, and we call them articular churches. Articular church, it has to be made entirely of wood. During the construction, no stone or iron is allowed, not even nails. The entrance had to be turned away from the village and from the street. Those are requirements imposed by Habsburgs who were Catholic and they did not want to encourage Protestantism. Had to be built on the outskirts of the village or outside the city boundaries, city walls, and built within 1 year. In very harsh Slovak conditions, all these churches needed to be built within 1 year, and no towers or belfries were allowed, and nothing could be facing the town, not to invite the worshippers. Freedom of religion was very necessary. People were already revolting, and there were several problems going on with Ottoman Empire and Rákóczi uprising and all that. So on October 25th, 1781, patent of toleration was signed by the Emperor Joseph II. Joseph II, his name, I mean, he holds the title of Holy Roman Emperor. Also, he's son of Maria Theresa, the Empress, and brother of Marie Antoinette. He also signed a subsequent edict easing restrictions on Jewish religion in 1782. It was a very difficult life for these people before. When we are describing churches, we are using Catholic churches, describing as Latin tradition or Roman. Eastern Orthodox churches are Ruthenian, Ukrainian, or Greek Catholic or Byzantine churches. Evangelical are also called Protestant, Lutheran, and Reformation churches. There are many other reformist religions, Hussites and all that, but we are now talking about these churches that are on Eastern Slovakia, UNESCO heritage. They are all built between 15th and 18th century. So we mentioned already two. Now we are talking evangelical churches in Kežmarok, Leštiny, and Hronsek. The shrines of the Eastern Orthodox Church are in Bodružal, Ladomírova, and Ruská Bystra, and those are the ones that are inscribed in UNESCO heritage. Leštiny, built in 1688. In Orava region, in very difficult terrain, built because the Turzo family was in power of the territory and they were Protestants. Many even serfs of Orava were Protestants, supported Reformation. So Ferdinand I donated Leštiny to the important noble family Zmeškal in 1548. They erected the church on their property, on that very, very steep land. It had a high stone base, and this was allowing for burial crypts. It was built in the shape of almost equal arms, cross, in the shape of cross, almost equal arms. Originally, it had no belfry. It was built 100 years later. It's very picturesque when you come to it. It's really beautifully built. Inside, what we see, let's see if inside the log structure has not changed for decades. Received the vertical planks and facing only later. So this belongs to that, only later. The whole architecture is a traditional folk building. This is why it is also so valuable. The lavishly painted interior decoration of the church is from 17th and 18th centuries. The church pews, you can see how they are. They have coat of arms. The nobles were sitting in their places, observing the sermons and all that. And it's richly decorated in sort of a, I would say, kind of Rococo tradition. It's very beautiful, folkish, bright colors with all sorts of ornamentation. The church pews, for example, we're hosting also Pavel Orsak Hviezdoslav. He is a national poet of Slovakia, very valuable poet. He was also attending here. There is a Renaissance baptistry. I don't have a picture of it, from the 17th century. When we look into the church, into the main altar, so we are talking about Leštiny, we can see the ornamentation, the beautiful arabesques and garden and wildflowers. This is how church is painted. And between the tableaus are little tableaus are paintings of Christ and apostles, and there are the altar is beautifully decorated with fall columns, 18th century, richly decorated pulpit. Everything is polychromed. It's beautiful. When you go to Haydn Hall in Eisenstadt in Austria, it looks a little bit like this church. I mean, that was the Rococo style painting of Central Europe at that time. So this is really beautiful, like Marie Antoinette's boudoirs, something like that. The church was refurbished in the 19th century, and they were added. See these blue supports on the roof? They were added because there was a major static failure. And they were painted blue and white by the local teacher, Adolf Medzihradsky, later on. So now, beautiful Orava castle. Zmeškal, who built the church, who was a kind of overseeing the building of the church, was captain of guards of Orava castle. The village of Leštiny was in serfdom of that Orava castle. So the church was constructed again 1688. We see it from outside in the winter time. Beautiful building, very varied architecture. Now we are continuing to Hronsek, Evangelical Church and Belfry. This is Belfry that was built later because, as I told you, churches that were Protestant were not allowed to have any belfries before when they were built. even with the ease of Joseph II. So this is also inscribed UNESCO, just separately, the belfry. I attended this church when I was very young with my father. We visited our cousins, and I was surprised because it was sort of, to me, it looked like a big hall, and it was all wooden, so it didn't look like my Gothic church in my town at all. So it was very impressive experience. So there were noble families who were Protestants in that district of Banska Bystrica. Hronsek belongs to Banska Bystrica district, and it's on a river of Hron, central Slovakia. Important noble families at that time was Geci, Sus, Rod, and Teleki. They were sitting in the Zvolen Sea. They had a lot of power, and they were in the imperial court. So their constant contacts with the German merchants allowed them to become Protestants, to get their philosophy, to spread the Reformation. And I will change it right to the church itself. Hronsek dates back to 13th century as a town or as a village. The Sopron approved the building of the temple in 1681, then built later in 1725. You know, if you need to build a church within 1 year, you need labor, you need money, you need wood, you need to make sure that it's built in 1 year. Otherwise, you cannot have the church. So it was very strict rules were applied to this. It's set in the environment symbolic linden trees as a symbol of Slavs. And Norwegian workers were participating in the building of it. This is why it is such a Nordic style. And they were also helping. So this church is very unique because it's built in a very Nordic style. Side. It's not a log structure, but a columnar framed one. And these outer hard oak carrying columns you see, they carry the weight of it. And the soft one is larch wood. So the shed roof runs in several layers to protect the walls, which was very smart. So it looks very unusual. As I said, they were not just getting workers from Scandinavia, but also money. Why? Because Protestants were stripped of their properties, the rich Protestants, by the Habsburgs for the revolts. And so then they didn't have enough money, so they had to collect money before they could build this. Inside, most beautiful. The church is remarkable for the architecture. It's sort of a barrel vault, excellent acoustically. It's built entirely of wood. It has shape of cross, 5 entrances. It can accommodate 1,100 chairs. It's an amphitheater style. Altar has 6 interchangeable pictures. They are very practical in that way because they just don't have to have so many altars, like let's say Baroque or the or Gothic era in formal Europe. Anyway, this is most not just effective, but impressive. I said it's very practical. For example, altar is here. Above the altar is built organ. Organ is everything is built of wood, for example, and 6 chandeliers come later on. So you can see organ. I need to speed up because we don't have that much time actually. I have so much to tell you. Kežmarok, Protestant Church of the Holy Trinity, after 1681, it was built. It looks like a regular house. You wonder what it is. Unassuming building. The town was very sophisticated, very old town. It was free royal town already in 1380. Many anti-Habsburgs revolts happened here or formed here, namely by Imrich Tokoli and František II Rákóczi, Ferenc Rákóczi. So Kežmarok was multinational. It had Slovaks, Germans, Hungarians, and Jewish communities living all together. It's a very interesting town. I just went there again this summer. Now, this one has most interesting building. What you see, that little building on the corner, on the right corner, it used to be a small inn bar, and they had to build this church within 1 year outside of the walls of the city and incorporate this bar just to sort of humiliate the worshippers that they have actually prostitution and drunken tradition in their church. But they made it into vestry and into a school. The Kežmarok is here. It's Tatra Mountains, practically northwest from my northwest from my town of Prešov. When you see it inside, it's beautiful. Ceilings are painted. It took a while to paint them, several decades, but it's extraordinary masterwork. The wooden organ with wooden pipes. It's just amazing. It was built between 1717 and 1720 by Wawrinec Tchaikovsky and extended in 1729 by Master Martin Korabinsky from Spišská Nová Ves. After general restoration in the 1990s, services are again held here. If you want to visit, you really need to make an appointment. They don't just keep it open because it's a very valuable church. This is another view on the church. All this color, altar and a pulpit, it's all faux paint, marble, and it's made of wood. It's just gorgeous. So the church and this is Protestant Church of the Holy Trinity. So you have Holy Trinity above the altar. It was built between 1718 and 1727. So of course, concerts happen here. This is the most beautiful church. It holds on with the no nails and practically different wooden structure. So I can tell you so many names, who built what and everything, but we don't have that much time. You can see concerts are taking place here. It's at Tatra Mountains, so it's very close to Tatras. It has a beautiful view on Tatra Mountains. So Kežmarok, historically the Spiš region, had a large Lutheran community, and it was a cheese market, Kézimat, Kežmarok. So it's very interesting. I'm just mentioning that there were a lot of different groups of people living here. And I already mentioned that it was industrial region. They really traded everything. And so Rákóczi, when uprising happened, the Kaiser confiscated their property. So that's why they were sort of impoverished and had to collect the money. They couldn't build anything really fast, but they built this fabulous thing and painted it inside so it looks like really faux paintings everywhere, beautiful. All right, why are these churches on the UNESCO list? A witness of the skill and spirituality of local artisans, anonymous builders without a written format or plans. They didn't have any formal plans. All is based on the experience and abilities of local people in symbiosis with nature, based on wisdom inherited from generation to generation with a remarkable effect, as you could see. So why are these are unique examples of shape? Now we are talking about Greek Catholic churches, Ladomirova. This is Church of Saint Michael of Archangel, built in 1742. They are Byzantine Rite churches, and they were serving Slavic population before. See, all Slavic population came from this tradition of Byzantine church. And so these churches are still kind of our ancestral churches. The Christianity was introduced only in 864, and the traditions were very old, coming from Byzantium, But because Cyrillus and Methodius established our new alphabet, Glagolitics, that later changed in being in Bulgaria and Russia into Cyrillic alphabet, because they established this alphabet for our language that we already spoke, we could celebrate our liturgy and read our Bible in Glagolitics, and that was very unusual. They had to go to ask permission of the Roman Pope, who was actually very progressive, Hadrian II, and he gave it to us. So, and those are the churches that actually carried this tradition, and they carry this tradition on up till today. So they speak the language that is pretty ancient, pretty ancient Slavic old language, and they still celebrate the Mass is much longer. The traditions are very Byzantine. So 1742, onion domes often appear in groups of three, representing the Holy Trinity. When you have four, when you have one, for example, just one dome, it represents the Christ, Jesus Christ. And if you have five, it's a Christ and four evangelists, and so on. So there's belfry with three bells, and everything is built with no nails, very heavy bells ringing. Now we come to iconostasis, very valuable. 5 rows, usually this is 5 rows of icons everywhere in every church that is of this Byzantine tradition. And they are polychromed. Many of them were destroyed. Many are exhibited in the museum Bardiev. Many are still in the churches. So it's a beautiful thing to visit. This is heart of any Eastern Rite temple and forms the architectural sacral divide between the shrine, a space for God, and the nave, a space for the believers. Consists of 4 rows, sometimes 5, of the icons, and all play an important role in declaring the faith of the faith. What it is, it's sort of like a Bible in pictures. The most important things are in these iconostasis, painted in the form of icons. Because illiterate people, they could not read Bible or anything like that, this was already arranged by St. John of Damascus in Byzantium. So the way that iconostasis formed took like 1-2 centuries until we have this today that has not changed much since St. John of Damascus. This is very interesting. So the first row is called sovereign row, and we have Hodegetria, Mother of God Theotokos, and it's coming from ancient Greek language and so on. I don't want to stay on this factor too much. On the left, you have Saint Nicholas, who is very favored of Eastern tradition. Now we see everybody. So it's a visual scripture. Now we see on the right, this is Jesus teacher. On the right, even too much on the main row of icons. Gabriel, angel Gabriel, which is saint of the church. All right, I need to speed up. Here is this John of Damascus, who actually formed this iconostasis for us. So organize the icons into the order of good storytelling, explaining to the believers the way to salvation by introducing the essential parts of their faith. Byzantine Church, it's actually, well, maybe I should not dwell on this. This is a little bit of a political, how the Greek Catholic Church of Slovak Byzantine Catholic Church is introduced. It has sui ruis, which means juris, sui juris, on right. It belongs under the Pope, under the Rome, but it has it's away from Moscow. It's away from every other church, Greek church. It's away from the Kiev, so it belongs to Rome. But still, celebrates in Byzantine rites, in the language, and in the tradition. So
Renato.
here we have Ruska Bystra. We have to finish.
Renato.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah, we do. We promised to have our audience back to their families by 8 o'clock.
Yes,
I'm
I
realizing
know.
now that
We
you are.
we started.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that because you have such a wealth of information and you do these presentations.
Earlier, I mean later. So I already quite a bit. This is another church inside. I will finish. Mirola, most beautiful, interesting churches in the Eastern Slovakia. There are many of them, but these are the UNESCO heritage. I could tell you what those altars are, what is everything. Okay, I'm done. Obec Potoki, 14. You would be very surprised how many wonderful trade routes led through that territory to the north, to the Baltics. Even during the ancient Egypt, they were already using that. And so I'm not going to finish here. I don't want to go to the Byzantium. I was going to introduce the Byzantium, but that's probably it. So I will stop sharing and you can ask questions.
That sounds great.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah, because you give presentations like this, and on these topics, of this topic and other topics, we can also be sure to help advertise whenever you will be speaking next. So if folks, have detailed questions or want to see more, they can see you again. They can find you again. This was fascinating, just learning about the melding of people, religions, cultures, the sort of experience and evolution of people of these areas. I see people are signing off already. And you actually answered some of these questions that were asked about whether the churches are still in operation today. We saw that some were.
Some were not.
And some were not, exactly. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask live? Again, remember, you'll be recorded both your face and your voice. I'd like to open it up to those folks who are here. No, I mean, you were incredibly thorough. Did you want me, Anna, to ask?
Yeah, exactly. This is what my experience is. Sorry. My experience is that people have no questions to ask on the end. And if I would finish the entire presentation, they would find out so much about how it came about that this influence came from the east to the west and how it changed and mingled all together. But anyway, this is enough, I think. Yeah.
I have a quick question. I
Bianca.
noticed, and I don't know my history around glass, but the churches had glass windows. One of the churches, however, the windows were made out of hexagonal mosaics. Are glass windows part of the original infrastructure? What do you know
The
about the
original,
windows?
yeah, people were making a handmade glass in Renaissance, and glass came. It was pretty well known already in Greece and Egypt and everywhere in Rome. So it made its way already north a long time ago, and people were making it in very, very simple and primitive way. But they did, and they were not big panes. They were only small pieces. That's why you have sort of mosaics everywhere, and small round pieces everywhere because they could not make a huge pane. Yeah, so some of these where you saw the churches were refurbished, like they were changed 200 years ago, 250 years ago, 19th century. So certain things were changing, but a lot of it is so original, and this is why it made the UNESCO list.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Linda?
Okay, I think that's my cue to wrap things up, unless somebody else has a final burning question. It doesn't look like it. Renato, we cannot thank you enough. We hope that you enjoyed this session and learned a whole heck of a lot about wooden churches of Slovakia. And if you like this session, please subscribe to our mailing list at the bottom of Sokol SF's homepage. Learn about events like tonight's. Join us at live events. For example, in December, we're holding a Christmas cookie decorating class. In February, we have our annual meeting where we set the calendar for the year ahead. We'd love to have you join us again and again. Thank you. Dobrou noc. Renato, ještě jednou moc krát vám děkujeme.
Děkuji. Dobrou noc.
Dobrou noc.